Joined now by Jake Rowe of Dawgs HQ here in Jacksonville. And this is the game Georgia needed.
Yeah.
This was control at the line of scrimmage. Little adversity with Florida, their scripted first drive going well. And then Georgia just shuts it all down.
Yeah, and I think the biggest key was negative plays and creating those. Georgia had struggled to do that with consistency throughout the first few games. They come out tonight or today and they get 4 sacks, and that's a third of what they had coming into the game. Kind of did this last year. Bye week, I think they had 7 sacks in 7 games. Then they had 28 after that. So I think that was something you really needed to see from this Georgia team. And, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, getting him back. We didn't even think he was going to play.
Yeah.
He was only weight-bearing last week, and he had such a good spring and summer that you thought, all right, well, this is a guy that can help Georgia if he ever gets healthy. And he sure made his presence felt with that strip sacks. First fumble Georgia got all year.
Well, and it's interesting because all of the talk was about what they would be without Brock Bowers, but also you didn't think about what they'd be with some of the guys they got back from injury.
Sure.
Ladd McConkey, a healthier version of that. It certainly seemed like he helped, pick up some of the production from Bowers.
Yeah, and I still think you're feeling some of the effects of Bowers' red zone stuff. His ability to create things for other people down there. Georgia was hit and miss, and I'm sure Mike Bobo would probably tell you he'd like to have a player to call back, or Carson Beck, or however those got called, some of those run passes. But Ladd McConkey was massive in this game. That touchdown, the 41-yard touchdown that gave Georgia the lead, was kind of vintage, Ladd McConkey. There are some guys that are like stack monsters. They're great in the stack, the offensive lineman, defensive lineman. He's a space monster, and he just finds it. He feels it, and he did a great job there, and that was what he can bring to the offense.
Well, I think the other thing that probably gives the coaching staff some solace and makes everybody feel better going forward is Carson Beck didn't need Brock Bowers as a security blanket. He could spread it around to a bunch of different receivers, and the offense could move.
Yeah, for sure. And they really, even without Bowers, attacked the middle of the field incredibly effectively. Beck has had this thing this year where he still missed some of them today on some of those deep shots, but that 10 to 25 in the middle of the field, he's just lethal. That's where he's been at his best. And I thought he did an incredible job with that. 3 plays, 40 yards or more for that offense. That's exactly what they needed with Bowers out.
The other thing about it is they didn't seem to let up when they got the big lead. That was another thing that, the Kirby Smart teams that have been very good always keep the pedal down when they have a team down. And it seemed like that was not a problem for them.
No, maybe a little. I think they probably did come out in the third quarter thinking that they were going to continue to run the ball as well as they did. There was some middle 8 stuff there that you're kind of like, well, they are being a little bit conservative and trying to run some clock. But when they turned it on, when they were like, okay, we're going to attack, it was kind of, Florida really didn't have an answer for it. And there was no better example of that than that final touchdown drive. Georgia mixed run and pass, and finally just
they had to. They got stuck in 3rd and long, and there was nothing they could do.
And they kind of bullied their way into the end zone for a touchdown to kind of put the exclamation point on it.
Yeah, and it goes back to stuff we talked about at the beginning of the season. It feels like this team passes to set up the run a lot better than it runs to set up the pass.
That's this team. That is this team. And listen, I don't know that that's going to be the same every week, because I think body of work, you've thrown enough that teams are going to have to respect it. So maybe they play you different. You go out there and they're playing you too high, so you're going to run it early. I thought Georgia ran the ball effectively early in this game, and that was probably a big difference in some of those big plays that they got. But ultimately, they passed a big test without Brock Bowers.
Well, and it only gets tougher. The tests get tougher as you go, because Missouri, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, that's a stretch that when we were at the beginning of the season talking about, schedule's easy. This is not easy. That stretch is not easy.
No, it's not. And, Missouri's a good football team. They're going to have a bye before Georgia. They're off tonight. So that's something that Georgia's going to have to contend with, a fresh, well-coached football team. And Georgia gets them at home, and they kind of get Georgia's version of the 12th man involved in those games, which I think is going to be pretty helpful against 2 offenses that have good playmakers, good quarterbacks, and can create plays of their own.
Yeah, and it does feel like Georgia, we've seen Georgia start slow. We've seen Georgia turn on the Jets with the Kentucky game. This was, I don't know if it's even a slow start, because Florida had a really good script. They fed Eugene Wilson.
Yeah.
It was actually what Kirby Smart said was going to happen on Monday.
Right.
But then Georgia just figured it out and dealt with it.
They did. And really, honestly, it was coming up with a big play on that second drive, that strip sack on 3rd down.
Yep.
That kind of got things going for them. And that's something that, this defense is not what it has been the past couple of years. It's still really, really good. I think a lot of teams in college football would love to have it. But if they can start to get kind of that turnover, negative play thing going, I think that can take this defense to
it's hard to adjust when you had straight aliens for 2 years. I mean, that's what people don't understand. When you had a defensive line in 2021 with 4 first-round draft picks playing regularly, and really 5, I mean, Nolan Smith too.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's not going to be like that most years.
Yeah, they won a national championship with 6 of their front 7 going in the first round of the draft, and the other one winning a Butkus Award.
Yeah,
so that's kind of how that operated. And I always felt like it was going to be a little bit of a step back. I still think they're real fundamentally sound, and maybe sometimes they're going to have to give up some of the run plays that Florida gave them to them today, so that they can maybe generate a little bit more negative plays in that regard. But tonight was an instance of Georgia's defense and offense, they just never stopped, and they kind of came up with the plays over and over.
Well, and the play that all the Florida people are talking about, the 4th down play early in the game, Georgia did a great job of stopping that. That was a case of eye discipline, where if somebody messes up there, they're going to get that first down, and maybe they do go score again, because they had scored a touchdown.
First down, they might have gotten a lot more than that if one guy.
You could have been looking at a 14-3 game at that point. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. And they stopped it. I mean, that was something that Georgia did well in a big moment. And there were a lot of those tonight. And those are, when Florida won 17 out of 20, the team in blue and orange made all of those plays. And now Georgia made those tonight. Yeah,
it's very interesting to hear Florida, Billy Napier talk about it, because Georgia is clearly the standard to which they want to achieve. And this is the measuring stick. And then they ain't there yet. And I'm sure Kirby would like to keep it that way forever if he can.
Absolutely. And, you talked about those aliens a minute ago. I'm sitting here thinking, you looked at that game, a sophomore, a freshman coming up with sacks in that game, a redshirt sophomore. I mean, they've got them. They're
just young aliens.
Keeping them healthy and having a hard time kind of bringing them along. But that's one thing that's going to be key for this team going forward. Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee is making sure that those guys continue to progress, so that they can make the plays like they did tonight when they need them most.
Adorable little baby aliens. Doing great. Jake Rowe, thank you so much.
You got it, dude.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On 3 Sports YouTube channel.